Welcome back to Clarity Convos for Wedding Post podcast. I'm your host, Aislinn, and today we have another short and sweet podcast episode for you, all about when I made price jumps in my wedding photography business and how you know when it is time to do the price jump. I think there's a lot of discourse around when should you raise your prices? Should you do it after 3 weddings or should you do it after 10 weddings or whatever it is? And what I want to say to this is I was in business for 14 years as a photographer. There were some seasons where I did follow hard and fast rules of do it after 3 weddings. That's when you raise your prices. And then there were other seasons where it was you know what? Nope, today I'm done. I am done. I am not charging this anymore. It does not feel aligned. We are charging more. So I want you to also check in with yourself on this and make sure that you are not following something just because you quote unquote should, but having a good heart to heart on does this actually feel aligned for me? So there were not a ton of seasons where I would literally double my prices. That generally was not what was happening, but I was always leveling up my skill sets. I was always working on my emotional intelligence. I was always working on just making sure that I was a better business owner and a better creative. Every single day, every single year, that always got better. So when I think about the different times that I made price jumps in my business, and just for background here, I was a photographer for 14 years. My last couple years as a photographer, I was charging between 10 and 17K. So I definitely was hitting upper echelon of the wedding industry. I wouldn't say I was the top tier by any means, but I definitely was charging more than a lot of other people charge. And there were certain seasons where I definitely made really large jumps. There was a season where I was charging $5,800. It was the most that I'd ever charged as the base package. And then within 7 months, I was charging $8,190. That is a $3,000, maybe $2,000 jump right there. That's a pretty large jump for most people. A lot of people will be oh, I'm going to charge $4,000 and then I'm going to charge $4,200. And that's a huge difference. And it's going to make a difference in my sales. And what I want to say to you is that $200 is pennies. It is pennies. It may not feel like it right now, but it is pennies. What you need to be working on are the different skill sets you need in order to charge more. So when I think about the different price jumps that I had in my wedding business, there were seasons where I made really big jumps, like I just mentioned, but then there were also seasons where I only jumped maybe $500 or $200. I will say when I was at the beginning of my business and I didn't have the sales skills that I have now, and towards the end of my photography business, that's when I was making much smaller jumps, where it would be $100 or $200 or maybe $500, but I still was making sure that I was always moving forward. So here are 3 different places that I really felt like I made these really big jumps and some of the things that I worked on to make sure that I felt good about that price jump. So the very first thing I want you to think about is when your skill sets have leveled up past what you are currently charging. So if you can walk into a room right now, any wedding situation, whether it's in a darkly lit reception hall, or it's outside in bright sunlight, or it's on the top of a mountain, or it's whatever. If you can walk into almost any lighting situation and you are I'm good, I know exactly what I'm doing here. That means that you have a skill set of being able to walk into almost any situation and be good. That is a skill set that people will pay for. That might not be the thing that comes up during a consultation call, but people will pay for that skill set. And it means that you can charge more. The people that you see in the industry, especially photographers and videographers who are charging a lot more than you are probably charging, can walk into almost every single situation out there when it comes to lighting, or it comes to people, or it comes to production level. They can walk into those situations and be okay, cool. I've assessed the room. I can work with this. If you do not have that skill set, you need that skill set in order to charge more. So if you're kind of on the cusp, maybe you're charging $5,000 and you're I want to charge $8,000. If you don't have that skill set, you will not be prepared walking into the rooms that you're going to have to walk into when you are charging $8,000. And it is going to be so expected of you that you can walk into any situation. So that's a skill set thing that when you have leveled up past what you are charging, right now, if I were to go back into the wedding industry and I charged $5,000 for a wedding, a full service wedding, it would not make sense because I have skill sets and I have sales skills and I have not just technical photography skills. I also have people skills and I have soft skills and I have a process, all these things. It doesn't make sense for me to charge 5K. It makes sense for me to charge 10, 15, 20K because of the skill sets that I have. So I want you to take a really deep look at what the skill sets you have are right now And do those actually match what you're charging, or should you be charging more? So the next thing I want you guys to think about is that when you see your leads, like let's just say you have a consultation call with like a couple, and then they're like, "Oh, we love you so much, but sorry, we're going to go with someone else." And they go hire someone who is more expensive, you can raise your prices because it wasn't about price. It was not about price. So I want you to think about like if you were to kind of like look back on maybe the past like 10 inquiries or so, like did they hire someone who was charging more? And if you don't know that information, by the way, you can ask that information. You can do your market research. I think a lot of people are really scared of like going back to like old leads and being like, "Hey, like, who did you end up hiring?" Or like, "Did you end up hiring somebody more?" Like, or like, "What was the price range?" or whatever. What do you have to lose other than like, maybe like they don't answer you back? So just thinking about like if you are having people consistently hire people who are more expensive than you, I really would recommend like possibly looking at raising your prices. So the other times that I made price jumps in my photography business is when I started to decide I wanted to take on less weddings. So there were seasons of my business where I was taking on like 18 to 20 weddings. And I was like, I really just don't think I want to take on this many weddings. I do a lot for my clients and it's physically a lot. I want to actually like take on less each weekend or whatever, and I want to charge more. So a lot of my clients will come to me and they're maybe doing like 20 weddings a year and they only want to do 10. So what we need to do is we need to raise their prices, and we need to have other revenue streams in place, or maybe we need to have other like pillars within their business in place in order for that to feel good. So if you are currently in a place where you want to take on less weddings, it's probably time to also raise your prices, as long as you have the skill sets and as long as you have the like network and the feeders of people who are referring people to you. So when I think about the different price jumps that I made in my business, I have zero regrets. Like I look back on that and I'm like, yes, that is exactly what I needed to be charging. Yes, that is exactly what got me to where I wanted to go, like in my photography business over the years. And it is so scary. I know exactly if you're listening to this podcast episode and you're like, "Oh, she did it without fear." Like, like you can ask my husband how many conversations we would have before I would actually raise my prices. And I thought I was doing something like so big and so scary when I would do it, because you think like, "Oh, I'll raise my prices." And then what if nobody books me? What if nobody books me? Guys, I can tell you right now, when I raised my prices from 5,800 to 8,190, there was a 7-month gap of people hiring me for weddings. What did I do during that time? I networked. I took on other work. I made sure that I had other revenue streams, but I knew my skill sets had leveled up basically beyond the 5,800 that I've been charging. They were in the 8,000 range. So I needed to charge that, but I needed to make sure that I had the feeders in of people referring me, making sure that people knew my pricing, all of that kind of stuff. I didn't do that and think like, "Oh, this is going to work immediately." I just knew it was the thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to be working at $8,000 weddings. I wanted to be using my skill sets in those ways. I didn't want to keep booking weddings at 5K. Like it just did not feel good. So just really recognizing that you can do it and be scared. It is okay for you to raise your prices and to feel that like silence and feel that fear. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that it's uncomfortable and it's new. So I'm not saying to go out and shock your nervous system and charge triple what you're currently charging. What I am saying is that if you've been thinking maybe I need to raise my prices, follow the nudge. Follow the nudge. Ask yourself the question, are my skill sets aligned? Like, have I had people who have been booking other people? Do I need to like work on my sales skills? Do I need to work on things that are outside of my technical skills, like not just lighting, but maybe like my soft skills, like, my people skills, things like that? Are there things that I need to do in order to charge what I want to charge? Or should I already be charging what I want to charge? All right, my friends, I hope that this has inspired you to raise your prices. I hope that this has also given you a little bit of some ideas on what to think about when you are wanting to raise your prices. If you're someone who is like, "I just want to feel supported when I finally do raise my prices," you can get into my signature program, Success Accelerator program. It is for wedding professionals who want to optimize their wedding business, and they also want to master their mindset and learn new ways of making money in their business. It is an incredible space. It's a lot of both the mindset side and the strategy side, which if you know me, you know those are my things. Those are my jam. So if you're interested in that, you can go to the show notes below, but I will see you guys on the next episode.